All right, mailbag time, John. These mailbag questions come from iTunes. So leave a review on the iTunes page of the podcast. Leave a question in that review, and that's where we get to the mailbag on the podcast.
Yes, it is, Guy. Yes, it is.
We should do one of these with YouTube comments. Take YouTube comments and just do a video about YouTube comments.
I completely agree.
Okay.
I like Q&As.
Yeah. All right. So let's just, I don't know what order I have these in, so we'll just fire these off. Some of these are long. I'll just read the question. Thank you for all your reviews. Go review. This is from B-Ra, Seattle in the Bay. Actually, I like this one because I don't quite even know what he's saying. Pete Carroll is getting a lot of smoke lately with his lame offense. If Russell Wilson wasn't such a corporate puke, Carroll might be out of a job. Thoughts? Also, why is Shanahan acting like Garoppolo, whatever is because he spelled it wrong, is contagious? It's only hurting his trade value. B-Rod's got some unique angles here, John.
Pete Carroll is viewed as a pretty good coach. I think Pete Carroll kind of gets unfairly kind of crapped on sometimes.
Just following some Seattle media people, I feel like that in Seattle people, I feel like there is this thing like about his offense, like he's dedicated to running the ball, and everyone's killing him on the internet for that. The guy that he doesn't care about.
Didn't they start passing it this year and it stopped working as the season went on?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what all the criticisms are, but how about if Russell Wilson wasn't a corporate puke, Carroll might be out of a job?
Well, I do think there's some validity to that. I respect Russell. I think he works his ass off. He's an incredible player. His press conferences and just his whole deal, anytime a camera's on him, a little much for me.
Yeah, but how does that keep Pete's job?
Well, I think I don't know if this is what the guy means or not. If he would be more edgy, kind of like a Aaron Rodgers, where I just know he might say anything, Russell will not. Russell would never, ever utter a word that he could even be construed as controversial. He's just too calculated. Where I think Rodgers stopped giving a shit. I think Brady kind of doesn't really give a shit anymore. A lot of quarterbacks do care. Like Drew Brees is like the cooler version of Russell that way. It's like he doesn't say anything either, but he just feels a little more genuine. Russell doesn't feel very genuine. Like, Russell, is this how you talk to like your brother or Ciara when the cameras are off? Because it doesn't. If it does, it'd be exhausting. And he would never say anything like, we need to do this more. We need to, like DK, for example.
Yeah.
When he was sitting down with those guys and he just kind of gave a real answer. Like, yeah, they just kind of figured this out. You couldn't pay Russell $10 million to say anything like, yeah, I wish we would do this a little bit more.
But what I'm saying is, I think you assume that if Russell acted that way, he would say negative things about Pete. Like, that's the assumption in that comment.
No, not negative.
I don't even mean negative, but I'm just saying, like, part of why Russell is because he has adopted all of Pete's mental training, like all the stuff that Pete preaches, like all the mental performance stuff, the neutral mind, all Trevor Moawad. It takes what it takes. Like, Russell's all in on.
Was that Pete?
Well, Trevor Moawad not Pete, but all that stuff. Oh, well, actually, he might be Pete. All that stuff is Pete.
Yeah, that might be fair.
So, what's his name? Pete. Gervais, the other mental performance coach that he brought in. I forget his first name, but Michael Gervais.
All Pete's stuff is the reason Russell became a great player.
Yeah, the reason he doesn't wear baggy jeans anymore is Ciara, but. I appreciate the unique take from B-Raw.
I think Russell wears a lot of people that I know that are fans of Seattle out. They're like, bro, can you just be a human? I think people.
I understand, but that's not keeping. I get it, but I think it's easy to say like you should be this way. It's like, well, no, to be me, this is who I got to be.
Yeah, but you can be like Tom Brady. I think has found a balance.
But that's that's who Tom Brady is. Like. This is how Russell has to be. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, it's easy to be like, I wish you were 80% of you, but then 20% of this other thing I want you to be.
You're right. Maybe, like, I think you just maybe need to embrace, like, maybe Russell is like that 24/7, 365. Maybe he is like that with his wife.
But maybe he's not, but maybe that's who he's got to be to play football. That's all I'm saying. It's like, it's easy to be like, God, I wish you were this way, but also you were also this way. It's like, well, I'm just me. So
yeah, maybe it's just a little cheesy, you know?
Yeah, but that's okay.
That's who he is.
Fine, trade him. Hate him. Send him somewhere else. This from Chum Game Lover. When is it time for the Niners brass to? When is it time for the Niners to hold the Niners brass accountable for Kyle and John on the QB situation? I feel like they keep getting a pass. Solomon Thomas instead of Watson. Here's a list: Mahomes, Watson, Brady, Stafford, and now Captain Kirk will save the team.
I would say they're not getting a pass. People are kind of edgy right now.
Yeah.
I would say that going into next season, Or, I mean, going into this offseason, the expectation is like, guys, figure shit out and just take a swing. Like, just get aggressive, do something. And I think Kyle, they've kind of talked about it. I do think they're under now. The greatest pressure comes with Kyle knowing that they need to get a good quarterback. I think there's tangible pressure from every angle right now. Themselves, the fans, the team. Just it's the elephant in the room right now. It's not like who could be their if K'Wan Williams leaves, who's going to be their nickel corner? Got news. No one gives a shit. Who is going to be if Kittle goes down? They need another tight end. No one cares. Figure out the quarterback. Like once you figure out then we'll worry about that stuff. I'd say that's the only thing, if you ever talk to anyone about the 49ers, no one talks about anything else but the quarterback right now. I would say in my experience for the last couple months.
That's true. But I also will say, to the point of chum game lover, and I've said this before too, like how it happens over the next 5 years will affect how we remember the decision not to really evaluate Mahomes or Watson. And it deserves to be talked about now because it's not like the Niners had a quarterback that they were picking over Mahomes and Watson, and they were wrong about the evaluation of their own guy. And in retrospect, they should have cut bait. They didn't have a quarterback, and they were waiting around for Kirk Cousins to become available because they knew he was going to become available. And then they stumbled into Jimmy, and that's why they never got to Cousins. But I do think it's fair to say, like, guys, it'd be one thing if you had a guy and then you were wrong about the guy and you moved on later. But they didn't even have a guy, and they didn't really consider drafting Mahomes or Deshaun, even evaluating. Now there could be an upside to that, which is maybe they would have wanted a guy and they might not have liked either one of those guys better than, most of the league did think, I shouldn't say most of the league, it was not an unpopular opinion that Mitchell Trubisky was number one quarterback on the board, right?
I saw Sean Payton told someone yesterday that he said Mahomes was the best quarterback prospect he'd ever evaluated.
And he believed that at the time. He also said Kamara would have taken him over. I mean, yeah, you know what? Peyton has a track record here of maybe he's a little full of it, but I would be open-minded to the fact that he actually means that and meant it at the time.
To me, the Brady thing, that conversation is a conversation. Mahomes Watson they made a decision. It was the wrong decision. The news is in. They got lucky. They got Jimmy. Like, that's water under the bridge. Nothing can change that.
Well, no, it's true.
They got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, but they knew his flaws, and they chose to not sign Brady. And I'd say anything post Jimmy Garoppolo, like the Brady thing, that's a whiff. That gets talked about. Like the Jimmy thing worked because it got them to a Super Bowl.
Yes,
right?
But I think if we're 5 years down the road or 4 years, 3 years down the road, and the Niners still don't have a quarterback and they haven't gotten back to the NFC Championship game, and Kyle and John Lynch are out of jobs. They're not the Niners brass anymore. Part of their whole story is they had the number 2 pick in the draft that Watson and Mahomes got drafted and didn't like them, didn't really even investigate them.
But I guess my ultimate point is like that's a fact. Right?
Yes, it is.
That is what it's concrete. Yes. They fucked
and this person's saying, why don't we talk about that? Chum lovers saying, why don't we talk about that every single day?
Because it'd be exhausting. Now,
all right.
To me, where it wouldn't be if we did the right thing, which I don't think they've really ever said.
No,
if they were arguing over it, then I think we could argue over it back. I just don't know what to say. Do you think they should have drafted Mahomes? Of course, right? Do you think if they could have a redo on that one, what do you think they do? I don't know. They probably don't trade back one spot, and they just draft one of those two guys, because if there was a redraft, the other guy goes one. Deshaun Watson would be on their team.
That's right. All right, this is from Ryan Van Heist or Haste. He makes the unusual decision of putting his real name in the review. We appreciate that, Ryan. He has a lot of questions here, so I'll just read one that I thought was interesting. He said, will first-rounders in the 2021 NFL Draft in 5 years be more volatile from a production standpoint than in previous or future years that do have in-person evaluations? It's a good question. We've been talking about this for a while. I shouldn't say we've been talking about this for a while. We talked about this during college football lead up when there was a question about what their season would look like, and the idea that trading picks this past season, that you should do it, that you should be more willing to trade picks in the 2021 draft because it's harder to evaluate. Now that we're here, we kind of know, right? If you've got the 12th pick, you've got an idea of how much I like a guy, how much did that guy play, Do we feel like we've got a real evaluation on them? All that sort of thing. Do you think there'll be a difference in production 5 years from now than in a normal draft? That's the question.
I've been asked a couple times, do you think the reason the Lions did the Rams deal is because it's going to be easier in future years to know, right?
Yeah, that the Lions value a future pick more than this year.
And my pushback was, I would say maybe if they let the Rams keep their first round pick this year, but the Rams didn't have a first round pick to give them. Like, I think part of it was just they might have been the only team to give 2 future ones, or just 2 ones in general. And I think they looked at it like, we just need a guy to hold us over, get Jared Goff. We have the money. It kind of made some sense, / it being an inside job. There's some validity to it for sure. I don't know how. We talked to Lewis about it. I've talked to my scouting buddies about it. Like, a guy that played in 6 games this year, not only are you trying to evaluate him, like in a draft meeting, you'd be like, well, coach, they didn't practice all week. Like, why was he so shitty this week? Well, because they implemented the game plan. Like, if you evaluate a guy on Cal, you'd be like, why did this guy look so terrible against UCLA? Well, coach, they found out they were playing UCLA Saturday morning, and they played them Sunday morning the next day while we were playing. A little weird, I know. I think this draft, for the top guys, the quarterbacks, the Penei Sewells, the Jamar Chases, the Waddles, like, I know these guys are all sweet. I think where it's going to kick in is like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round guys that usually you feel pretty good about, that you're kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
This draft is just going to be kind of weird. But wouldn't you say I guess the difference in last year's draft is, because I'd say last year's draft class feels like they're pretty good. There was a lot of evidence. They had just played normal seasons.
You had still gotten work. Like, even Herbert had his workout. It was like the last thing that happened was Herbert's workout.
They did the combine.
Yeah. So I don't think we'll see less production in this draft than in any other draft, in part because I think we'll see less confidence maybe in some picks. Maybe like internally there's less confidence when they make a pick.
But you never see that on the outside.
No, you don't see it. And confidence doesn't necessarily lead to nailing picks. Like, people have been confident about picks they missed on. People have been like, let's take this Russell Wilson guy. Whatever. Actually, they in retrospect, they say they were confident about that pick.
They waited to the 3rd round to pick them.
Yeah. But I think the thing is such a crapshoot anyway. I'm going to have a hard time seeing a dramatic difference in production. There are drafts you look back and you go, oh, my God, that was an incredible draft. And then there's drafts you look back and they were terrible. So it's going to be hard. I'll say this. It's going to be hard to match the 2020 draft in terms of immediate impact.
I see 0 chance.
I mean, but it'd be hard anyway. The draft was such I think that draft's an outlier.
Yeah.
1 year later. Draft. Next up, this is from ZT West. ZT West, we had to edit this because you asked 5 questions, which we appreciate. You feel free to ask 5, but we'll probably pick one depending on how many questions. We just have a lot of mailbag questions today. Which NFC East quarterback situation would you feel the best having? I really like this question. Giants, Cowboys, Washington football team, or the Giants or Eagles. I'm going to start.
I know who I'm going to pick. Go.
Washington football team.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer.
Because I know for sure I don't hate the guy that I'm tied to, or not hate. The Cowboys don't hate Dak. But they're not in a good spot with like
they're stuck.
They're stuck. Exactly.
Yeah. So basically, Dak this year on a second franchise tag is going to lead them to the playoffs, or they're not going to resign him, because he'll go, well, my market value, as we've seen this year, if Dak was a free agent, a true free agent, and could go anywhere, someone would give him way too much money. The Eagles' situation is a disaster. If they trade Wentz and he's good, they're fucked. If they keep Wentz and everyone still hates him, they're fucked. It's not an enviable place. The Giants are just stuck with Daniel Jones, who's probably not good, but they got to see if he is good enough to just keep rolling through. And their defensive, kind of minded, tough guy, special teams head coach is just going to roll it out. I got news for you, Joe. He stinks. And Washington is not tied to anybody. They're just single, right? They're not in a bad relationship. They're not in a relationship that they would like to get out of that's not bad. They're not in a Dak relationship where they like, but they're not willing to commit. They're just open-minded. They just want to find love. Now the pushback is, as the Washington football team in our lifetime, we're in our mid-30s, like our adult lifetime, definitely in the 2000s and the 2010s, they had the 1 year of RG3, and then he got hurt and it was never the same. They have not had a quarterback. So you just go, when you just look at the history of the franchise, you go, no quarterback. Now, once upon a time, the Chiefs had never drafted a quarterback who was any good. And then they got Patrick Mahomes. So, you know what can change, guy? One pick.
Yeah.
Can change your entire
one pick.
entire
But I
franchise.
would say also part of the reason I feel that way about Washington is because they've got like a real head coach.
Yeah.
You know, if it was just they could do whatever they wanted and they had more of a clean slate than those other three, but their organization is still their organization, but Ron Rivera, among the things he overcame this last year was the organization's recent history.
Screwed themselves a little bit by making the playoffs because their draft pick's way down. Like, did they really gain that much? And I think they'd argue, like, yeah, we taught a bunch of young guys. We're going to keep building around how to win. I think they wanted to do that.
You could also argue, well, say what you want about Dak. He's better than what Washington has.
Well, if Dak was a true free agent, would Washington sign him?
He might, yeah. So by that standard, you go, well, yeah, having the potential to get a quarterback is great, but you still have to get the quarterback. Like, who's going to have more touchdowns in 2021, Dak or whoever plays quarterback for Washington football team?
What if the Cowboys did this?
Dak also, by the way, suffered an injury this last year. We can't.
Yeah, but let's just say he's fully healthy, a broken ankle, and he's fully healthy. They just go, Dak, we're just going to let you hit free agency. And this is how we're going to do it. We'll match any contract, or we'll decide if we're going to match. How many teams would offer Dak $100+ million? Would it be multiple? Would it be that year like Kirk Cousins, where several teams are trying to sign him?
Yes.
The Bears, the Colts, the Washington, the Carolina.
Yep.
Maybe
you think the Niners. So? I do. Do you?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
I do think though immediately you could regret that.
Yes, you could. Yep. But you could also structure it in a way that.
But it's hard, I think, once you get over $100 million. Like, you're just kind of on the hook for 3 years.
This is from SSFV. Do you think Kyle likes Darnold? Then he goes on to ask to get into it. If Watson's traded the Dolphins, the Jets will have a bidding war. If Watson is traded, the Dolphins and the Jets will have a bidding war. It goes through a whole process. Downside is that he is. Downside is if he's better than Jimmy and he's unsigned past the next year, he gets expensive. Your thoughts? Only podcast I never missed, by the way, was what it was titled. Good title.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think Kyle likes Sam Darnold a little bit. Or at least I think he liked him coming out of college.
Yeah, I think Sam Darnold is the guy that John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, that Chris Ballard and Frank Reich, that Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace are having legitimate conversations. Like, is this guy worth giving 2 twos for? Is it worth risking our jobs for this guy? Is this guy any good? Because he does have talent. I think the question is he good? Or could he be good with us? And you start thinking about the nakeds and the nudes and rolling out and dumping it off. I think he'd be really good at that. Where I close my eyes and struggle with Sam is in that game that they played against the Saints a couple years ago, or that game up in Seattle where you just get these spots where you have to sit in the pocket under 3 seconds and just deliver some strikes. You have faith and people are peppering you. He's that guy. And I would lean no right now. I go back and forth with him because I'm a fan of him.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for him. Would I stake my career on him? I would not.
When I watch him hoping to really like what you see, and you see a lot. You do see stuff that you like. I see more stuff that scares you than that you go.
Would you rather take the risk on Sam Darnold? Like, if you had the choice, all things being equal, would you rather have Sam Darnold or Jared Goff next year?
Sam Darnold.
Just because you take the ceiling.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold or Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, the prices aren't equal, so it's
that one's harder because Jimmy's to me.
If you told me Jimmy could give you 16 games, I'd take Jimmy.
What Jimmy has shown is better than what Sam has shown.
Way
His best
better.
Stuff. Yeah. This is from Realistic Raider. You guys think the Raiders could trade for Deshaun? My scenario is that Carr is traded to the Colts, Saints for a 1 and a 2. Then the Raiders end up trading 2 1s, 2 2s in 2 seconds. Cleveland. This is the first Cleveland furl, John, I've seen in a trade, although I'm not sure if he's really tradable. And Abram for Deshaun and JJ. Probably a reach, but just thinking. That's what the mailbag's for.
Oh, they got JJ in the deal too?
What?
Yeah, I don't think it's JJ Nelson.
I got to read this one again. Carr's traded to the Colts or the Saints for a 1 and a 2. Okay. Either one of those teams. Then the Raiders trade 2 1s, 2 2s.
So they're one, that one.
Yeah.
2 2s, that 2, their 2.
Yep.
Farrell,
right? Abram.
Okay, so
You
two
get
guys that haven't been
Deshaun,
playing.
but you're like, we don't just want Deshaun. We want J.J. Watt. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
I would say the Texans would hang up on you the moment you just said 2 once, before you ever mentioned a safety they can't cover and a defensive end they can't pass rush. If I was the Texans, I wouldn't want any part of those 2 players. I just want picks. And
Well, no, I'd want. Although it might not line up with your future, but I don't want Waller.
Oh yeah, I'm talking those 2 players that he mentioned.
Yeah.
To me, J.J. Watt for the Texans is I'm separating the 2. Unless you can give me an extra 1 or 2 for J.J. Watt, like I'm trading J.J. Watt in a vacuum to like the Packers for their 2nd round pick, right? Or to the Steelers or to the Niners or whoever. Like he is his own little asset. It'd be like owning a home, and there's also a back home that you can easily rent out. Like that is separate. Like you can separate that. Like you can.
Well,
rent
I'd
out
say
the
like
front home, and you can rent out
specifically
the back
in
home.
San Francisco, John, it's like having a home and a garage.
Okay, yeah.
You can separate the 2 when you're renting or selling them.
Yeah, because you can charge the garage, right? $500 or whatever a month. It is a separate, even though they're connected. If you rent it out, you can separate the 2. Well, if you want a piece of this, you have to pay for it, right? And J.J. Watt is not a throw-in, because to me they have 2 assets. Obviously, Deshaun, worth the freight of however many picks that they can, determine that they could get, and it's probably a lot. I would not just add J.J. Watt into the deal. I would expect them to be, if they are both traded. I do think J.J. Watt's going to get traded. That's already kind of been reported. What would you guess J.J. Watt's traded for? I saw that no one played more snaps in the league than him last year.
Yeah, you said a 2nd. I don't think that's crazy. Maybe not a high 2nd. A 3rd feels comfortable to me. Like I could stomach that if I was sending a 3rd for him.
Do you think good teams are going to be all over him?
Here's the other thing with him. Yeah, he's old and he's making $17 million, but it's only a 1-year contract. You're not tied to something beyond this year, so you take a swing.
You know where he's going to end up? I already can
Seattle?
See it. Yeah.
What did they trade for Clowney?
If you who are they going to trade for him? Seattle. Who else? I'd be like, Seattle. If he is not in Seattle, I'll be surprised.
On draft day.
Or even earlier, but just they're going to be all over him.
Well, to me, let's make it, because Seattle obviously is going to trade out of the 1st round this year, like always, if they have a 1st round.
Oh yeah, to get more pick. Yeah, they'll tell him to wait. Like, we got you, dog. Like, we're coming. We want him.
Would you go pick swap with the Texans 2nd rounder?
What about going to play with his brothers though? They got.
Well, he's got to pick one though.
No, they're both now on the same team.
Oh well, then yeah, that'd
be pretty sweet.
Because you can now, whatever Subway is paying you doubles.
Well, Bud Dupree's a free agent. I think he tore his ACL too. What if you just let him walk? You accumulate JJ. You put him with TJ. Wouldn't that be pretty sweet? TJ and JJ both on each side.
You'd almost have to put them on offense for a snap.
TJ's better than JJ.
Crazy
right
to think, right?
I know.
It was like, oh, who is JJ Watt's brother? It's like, oh,
I don't know. Depoy.
Stud.
One of. Yeah, badass.
All right, good mailbag, everybody.
Good talk.